Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we've got a story for you that, honestly, it sounds impossible. It's a true scientific wonder, but it didn't start in some fancy lab. Nope, it started in someone's living room.
I mean, it just flies in the face of everything we know about biology, right? Plants need fresh air, they need water, they need good soil. But the answer to this question? It's a huge, surprising yes.
Just think about that number for a second. 63 years. That's how long a single plant has been happily growing inside a totally sealed-off glass bottle. We're talking more than 6 decades with zero fresh air, zero new water from the outside. It's not just a plant at this point. It's a living, breathing time capsule.
And get this wasn't some big, funded NASA project. It was just a hobby. A retired engineer, David Latimer, decided to try something on Easter Sunday way back in 1960. He tossed in some compost, a little seedling, a tiny bit of water, and then sealed it shut in 1972. And he hasn't touched it since. So the big question is, how did this simple, curious act end up creating its own tiny, self-sustaining world?
Okay, so how in the world is this even possible? Well, what we're looking at here is a perfect, and I mean perfect, little example of what scientists call a closed ecological system. And the best part? It was a total accident.
The easiest way to think about it is like a mini Earth in a bottle. Everything the plant needs to survive, the air, the water, the nutrients, it's all just recycled over and over and over again inside that bottle. The only thing it needs from the outside world? Sunlight.
You know what's interesting is that Latimer didn't just plant one thing. He tried a few different seedlings, but this one super hardy plant, the spiderwort, was the only one that made it. It became the sole survivor, the absolute star of the show. Turns out it was just the perfect plant for life inside a bottle. So let's break down how this works. First up, you've got the air cycle. The plant does its photosynthesis thing, right? It breathes in the carbon dioxide and breathes out the oxygen it needs. But it's a two-way street, because the tiny little microbes in the soil, and even the plant itself, they use that oxygen and release carbon dioxide right back. And voila, you've got a perfectly balanced, tiny little atmosphere.
Okay, but what about food? This is where it gets really cool. When the old leaves die and fall off, they just drop down onto the soil. And then the bacteria and fungi that were sealed in there with the plant, they go to work. They break down those dead leaves, and that process releases all the good stuff, all the nutrients, right back into the soil. The plant's roots just suck it all back up. It's the ultimate self-contained recycling program. Nothing is wasted.
And finally, the water cycle. So the plant pulls water up from the soil through its roots, but it also breathes out water vapor. It's a process called transpiration. That vapor hits the inside of the cool glass, turns back into liquid water, and basically rains right back down into the soil. And the whole cycle starts over again. And just remember, the last time anyone added water to this bottle was 1972. Incredible. Now, what makes this little bottle's success story so mind-blowing is when you put it up against a famous, super high-tech experiment that tried to do the exact same thing, but on a huge scale. And let's just say that one went spectacularly wrong. I'm talking about Biosphere 2. This thing was the Goliath to the bottle garden's David, for sure. It was this massive, sprawling facility out in the Arizona desert, designed to see if 8 people could live inside a totally sealed environment. The big idea was to test out life support for colonies on Mars. The comparison is it's just wild. You have this tiny, almost forgotten bottle garden thriving for over 60 years with basically zero help. And then you have Biosphere 2, a $200 million project planned down to the last detail with a huge team, and it completely failed in just 2 years. Yeah, for all that tech and all that human brain power, the whole system just spun out of control. It turns out microbes in the soil went nuts, just started gobbling up all the oxygen. The whole environment just plunged into chaos. And that's the key takeaway, isn't it? The bottle's amazing success wasn't an accident. It succeeded because it was simple, not in spite of it. So this little sealed world isn't just some cute oddity sitting on a windowsill in England.
no way. It's actually a super powerful model that has some really big lessons for the real world.
I mean, the lessons here are huge, and they apply all over the place. Think about space travel. NASA can look at this as a model for simple, hands-off life support on a trip to Mars. In classrooms, it's like a living, breathing textbook on how ecosystems work. And for all of us, really, it's a masterclass in sustainable design. It shows that the strongest, most resilient systems are often the ones you just let be.
So, after all this time, more than 60 years of just watching it grow, David Latimer, who's in his 90s now, he plans to pass the garden on to his kids. But the real legacy here isn't just the physical bottle, right? It's the incredible, almost accidental lesson that came out of it.
And that's the ultimate takeaway. This is the big one. The super expensive, hyper-managed Biosphere 2 completely failed. But the simple little garden? It thrived. And it thrived for one single reason. It was left alone to find its own perfect balance.
So that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. This 63-year-old garden in a bottle, it kind of suggests that maybe, just maybe, the best way to manage our own planet is to manage it less. That sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is just step back, trust the system, and let nature find its own way.